Hello, this is John from Western Maine Defensive Tactics. We're going to continue on our little series on budget Bowie knives today. We're going to talk about 3 products from an outfit called Bud K. Now, for those, most of you are familiar with Bud K, I'm sure. For those of you that aren't for some reason, Bud K is a purveyor of knives, let's say lower end, entry-level knives from places like China, Pakistan, Taiwan, places like that. They do have some higher end products as well, but most of their stuff is what I call entry level. I selected 3 Bowie knives from their line that I thought were the cream of the crop, the best ones I could find. There might be some better ones that I'll try later, but these are all under 50 bucks. And that was my priority for this little installment. So let's move these out of the way and let's take a look at some of these. Okay, this is the the Timber Rattler Western Outlaw Bowie knife. You know it's a Bowie knife because it says so right on the box. So, what does this knife have going for it? Well, it's got a well done, nice wide, full tang. Full length, full width tang. The handle is pretty nice on it if you like this style of handle. It's not my personal cup of tea, but it's pretty well done. It's pretty well finished. It's got a nice piece of synthetic pack of wood or something like that on it. It's got some nice brass on it. The fit is pretty good, though it does have some errors here and there. But you know what? This is a $20 knife. I don't expect a whole lot. The guard for a $20 knife is fitted pretty well, actually. Overall, the knife is 30 ounces, a little over, but basically 30 ounces for our purposes, which is, let's say, 8 to 10 ounces overweight in a working Bowie. Should be 20, 22 ounces or lighter. Okay, what leaves some things to be desired in this knife? Steel, heat treatment, edge grind, things like that. The steel is I think it's a TR65 stainless steel, which is basically to our ears a 400 series. Heat treatment, I think, is mediocre to dubious. It has been heat treated because it's not dead soft, but if this is a good cutlery, if TR65 is a good cutlery steel, it may be. This isn't heat treated to that steel's potential. So we could potentially have a decent knife here, but it wasn't heat treated to the potential of the steel, or the steel was inadequate or chosen for budget purposes. The blade's about a quarter inch thick, which is a nice thickness. And they leave a lot of that thickness right here in the back section of the blade by giving it a saber hollow grind, which I'm not a real big fan of because it leaves a lot of weight in the steel that doesn't do anything for you. But then again, this knife isn't made to use. This isn't a real using Bowie knife. This is one that appeals to a certain customer, and it's made for eye appeal and wallet appeal, basically. It's a big shiny knife for $20. And in that regard, they market this knife successfully. The sheath is basically junk. It is leather, or a very good imitation leather, because it looks like leather to me, and it's made about like you'd expect for a $20 knife. You probably wouldn't carry it in that sheath for long, but again, this isn't a real working Bowie knife. What this knife is good for is a trainer, because it's got a nice full tang and it's going to hold up to a lot of abuse. It throws pretty well. It works really well on the Pell. If you want a nice heavy knife to use in that way as a trainer, hey, this one's not a bad bet. But this isn't a real go-to knife to go out and do real work with. This isn't one that I'd carry in the woods because you've got a whole lot of weight there that doesn't do much for you. Moving along, we're going to talk about another Timber Rattler product. This is the Timber Rattler Southwest Bowie. This is actually a pretty neat little knife, despite having some of the same drawbacks as the other Timber Rattler Bowie knife. Again, the steel is rather dubious. TR85 stainless steel. Probably the same stuff that's in the Timber Rattler. The heat treatment, not so good. This knife actually came with edge damage when I got it. Will you just stand up here like I tell you to? There we go. It had a little edge damage. I addressed that with a file pretty easily. It's got a medium wide blade, about 2/10 of an inch thick, which is a little bit over 3/16. The handle is pretty nice. The guard is pretty nice. Sure, it's not fit as well as the Timber Rattler, but I paid $16.99 for this particular knife. The handle and feel of this knife is not bad. It's pretty good. Weighs about 20 ounces, or a slight amount over 20 ounces, but we'll call it 20 ounces for our purposes. I like the handle, though if you're going to do a lot of work on this as a trainer, you need to do a little contour work on the handle just to make it a little bit more hand-friendly. And I've thrown this knife. It throws pretty well. I think this is a real good value in a trainer for, 16 bucks or even cheaper when it goes on sale. I consider this knife to be the modern version, modern interpretation of this Pakistani Bowie that we all used to use as trainers, that are a little bit hard to find nowadays. But this is a decent knife to keep beside the Pel. This is going to go up beside my Pel all winter, and I'm just going to stick it in the crotch of a tree beside the Pel and leave it there and go up and use it when I need to and not worry about it because, hey, 16 bucks. If these ever go on sale for $10 or 10, 12 bucks, it might be a great idea to get 3 or 4 of them or more as throwers, because you could throw this knife thousands of times before you broke off the tip, and then you could just refile the tip into a point and keep throwing it. This is a pretty good value, and honestly, this is like the high point of my little package that I got from Bud K. It's an inexpensive knife. Some would call it cheap, and it's not a real working Bowie knife. But hey, I like it. I like the feel. It's got a neat look. It's not really my cup of tea for a working knife, but hey, I like it. It's kind of neat. Okay, let's talk about the Behemoth Bowie from Bud K. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about this because this knife was the biggest disappointment. As you can see, the knife is not whole right now. It is broken. Now, why is this knife the biggest disappointment? Well, it was the most expensive at, I think, 25 bucks. And you can see that it failed. Now, I'm not trying to harp on Bud K. I'm not trying to badmouth Bud K. But at the same time, no less than 3 times in a video from Bud K Full Throttle, do they refer to this knife as a full tang Bowie knife. It is not a full tang Bowie knife. Don't think that I'm mad because I'm misled. I was misled by this video, because I looked at this knife and I didn't know for sure, but I had very strong suspicion it was constructed just as it was. And I said, well, gee, you're not going to have a knife with that wide of a butt, with that small of a guard, as far as fitting it to the guard shoulders and have it still be full tang. I said, I bet that's a narrow tang knife. Well, not only was it a narrow tang knife, it is a narrow stub tang. A narrow stub tang that was welded into a piece of steel to make it appear as a full tang knife. And I think somewhere on YouTube, there's this guy. He's kind of an asshole. He's from Maine. He thinks he knows a lot about knives. He might say some things about tangs and stressors and stuff, but nobody watches those videos anyway. But anyway, I digress. But look at what they did. They took a narrow stub tang with significant stress risers, that's where the blade failed, and welded that on to another piece of steel to give it the appearance of a full tang knife from the outside. Which, if they were honest about how this knife was constructed, I guess I wouldn't have a problem. But my concern is somebody that doesn't know better couldn't determine that this knife was not a full tang, believed what Bud K said, thought they were getting a good tool, and went out and was disappointed when it broke right off, because this broke very easily. I did what is a British proof test to all 3 of these knives, and honestly, it's a lot less than what I do to the knives I make. It's a lot less than what a really good Bowie knife will take. Basically, what I did for the British proof test, I didn't do the whole test. I smacked it hard on the back, on a piece of seasoned oak, and then on each flat, pretty hard. About 7 or 8 times on each one. I got the back on this knife, and then I smacked the flat, and it failed. It broke. Why am I going to harp on this knife? Well, because this knife actually had potential. Look at this blade. This is a pretty nice Bowie knife blade. It's got almost 1/4 of an inch thick at this thickness at the spine. Nice high flat grind. They left enough meat at the edge where you could actually do an effective convex on it and come out with a really nice cutting knife. A moderately sharp clip point with a fairly fine point. It's a little bit high, but for 25 bucks, I'm not going to complain. But they blew it when they moved back in here and started making the tang. Now, in my opinion, if they'd just come in 1/8 of an inch from this ricasso and just made a straight, fairly narrow but full tang, and just slitted the most basic brass guard they could get on there, and then just put slab handles on it, this would be an excellent buy for $25 or $26, because this knife, sure, it would fail eventually because it has the blade is through hardened and it's stainless steel. I don't think it would take a lifetime of abuse, but I bet you could go out, put an edge on it, and do some work with it. It would be a really nice entry-level Bowie knife and do some work for you before it failed. But they didn't do that. And to my mind, they put a lot more effort at making this handle than doing it the way I just described. And they did that in order to appeal to the eye and make it look like, you know, the cold steel Laredo Bowie, to make a cheaper version of the cold steel Laredo Bowie. And I've read some reviews on this where people think this is just as good as a Laredo. And I don't understand how people think they're going to get the quality of, let's say, a $200 knife and a $20 knife or a $25 knife. That's just not going to happen. Now, don't think that I don't think the Chinese or the Taiwanese or the Pakistanis can make a good knife, or can't make a good knife, sorry. Of course they can. Man has made knives since we started dealing with metal alloys, and before that, we made them with lithic technology as well. And any country, any manufacturer can make a good knife if they put the effort to where it counts. This knife doesn't have it where it counts. Neither did the other two. These two are useful trainers. The Timber Rattler Bowies are useful trainers. This will actually get you hurt, I think, if you use it as a trainer. Let's say you've got this knife and you're working the pel, and you're doing hard thrusting. You're thrusting forward. The blade goes into the pel and sticks. And at that moment, the tang decides to fail. Your hand could come easily forward and get cut or butted in, damaged in some way, on the sharp edges of the tang, on the edges of the ricasso, or the bottom edge of the blade. Could break a finger, could cut you open, could do both. Is it really going to kill you? No, it's not, but it's going to end your training for that session anyway. Let's say you're working chopping cuts or slashing cuts or something like that against the pel. You're slashing like a motion like this. You come in and slash, that tang fails. This is significant because this is how the blade failed on me. This blade came back like this. And is it going to be like taking a hard cut in a fight? Well, no, but I'm guaranteed it will send you to the ER pretty quick. Again, it's not even useful as a trainer in this construction. If they'd done the handle constructed the handle as I described, I would rave about this knife for $25, even though it's stainless steel, even though it has a through heat treatment, because we need a budget-based, decent quality Bowie knife. We just don't have those represented in the market. Sure, you can find some here and there, but I've looked pretty hard, and if you guys can think of one, definitely leave it in the comments for me. I would really appreciate it. But the ones I see and examine are like, oh wow, this is a $40 knife, this is a $30 knife. It seems to have all its ducks in a row, but then there's one glaring flaw. The heat treatment will be bad. The tangs, a lot, are inadequate. You know, things like that. Sometimes it's made from a bad steel. But I'm not trying to rip on Bud K or anything like that. Don't think I am mad because they took advantage of me. I knew exactly what I was getting with all three of these knives when I laid my money down. But this knife, again, was advertised no less than 3 times in that video as being full tang. And to me, that's just wrong. Because they spent a lot of manufacturing time putting this knife together this way. And it just boggles my mind that they'd rather do it for this particular look and not have any real integrity in the blade, than make a decent knife and sell a whole bunch of them. But that's the nature of the market. Not everybody has the same priorities as I do. But if you look at different Bowie knives out there, I know the Winchester Bowie is made just like this with a stub tang welded. Note that it didn't break at the welds. It broke right up here in the tang transition where it had those stress risers. And like I said, I think there's some guy on YouTube that harps about tangs quite a bit. Anyway, that's about it from Bud K. But again, on the budget Bowie knife issue, you're not going to get a low dollar, decent quality working Bowie knife. And I'm not talking something that looks great. For, let's say, under 50 bucks, if it's a solid tool, it's a solid tool. It doesn't look great. But we're all familiar with budget-based knives that are actually decent quality tools. We're all familiar with both of these knives. The Mora knife, I bought this one for like $5 or $6 at a corner store, 20-something years ago, and it's great. This knife has excellent steel, it's got good heat treatment, and it has an adequate tang for a light-duty knife. Nobody's going to go out and do really heavy work with this. because it's not big enough and doesn't have the weight. But everybody knows these are great utility knives. But there's no frills here. You know, they're nice little knives, but there's no frills. Nobody expects any frills. And usually they run, you know, $10, $12 nowadays. This is, you know, representative of the carbon steel butcher knives from various manufacturers. I think I got this for $3 or $4 at a gun show. Had a little rust on it, and I cleaned it up. But it has, this knife has it where it counts. It's got great steel, 1095, good heat treatment, adequate tang, nice and wide, and a decent handle. Sure, there's no guard on it, but this is more of a utility knife, you know. And frankly, many people that helped found and explore our nation carried knives a lot like this and got the job done. But we're all familiar with these knives. So my question is, where are the less expensive, larger knives that are rough around the edges? And I don't mean machetes. I don't mean things like that. I mean, where are our larger Bowie style knives of that same manufacturing quality? Because I look at it like, well, gee, this is a big butcher knife. I bought this for, I think, $10 or $12. It's pretty thin, but it's got it where it counts again. It's got good steel, good heat treatment, nice edge grind, and a decent handle. Now, why can't the manufacturer make me a knife, let's say 3 times as thick, let's say 3/16 or, you know, 1/4 inch or so, 10.5-inch blade, good Bowie design, you know, just put a quick convex grind on it, make me a nice wide full tang, slide some guard on there and put these same hardwood handles on there and don't even bother to round them off. Leave them square and I'll fix it myself. Do that for $50 or $60. That would be a really good knife. Basic steel, well heat treated, a nice rugged tang. Don't even sell me a sheath with it. I'll make my own. What about that for a working knife? Well, we don't have those because I think people don't value Bowie knives as working knives anymore, so that portion of the market has been filled by lower end knives like this. Remember we talked about the de-evolution of tools? This is what the lower end Bowie knife has devolved with. Something inexpensive, something with some flash to it, but it's all show and no go. It doesn't have it where it counts. It has that the stainless steel saber hollow grind. You've got a lot of steel up here that doesn't really do anything for you, but it looks kind of cool, and some people think it looks badass, and they carry knives like this. And hey, not to badmouth what other people do. I don't care what they do. But again, all this manufacturing effort could have been spent making a really useful tool with no frills. But anyway, I hope I made a fair review of these knives for you. Again, I'm not trying to harp on Bud K quality or anything like that. I don't expect great things from $20 knives from China, but at the same time, when you advertise something as being made a certain way, it damn well better be made that way, in my opinion. I don't like to lie to people. I don't like to be lied to, and I don't think you're any different than me in that regard. But again, the timber rattlers, good trainers. Good trainers. Pick a couple up if they're inexpensive. They're nice knives to beat up. They're nice throwing knives. The big Western Outlaw Bowie throws really well, and I enjoyed throwing it. And I'm going to keep these 2 for training purposes and just for fun, basically. But anyway, I hope this video helped you out. Again, I didn't mean to come across as too biased because I try not to be a knife snob as far as price range and things, but when you're talking about working tools, you need a certain level of quality, and in my opinion and my experience, I don't think that's going to be available at much below $50. There are going to be some exceptions. Again, if you know of one, please let me know, because I'd love to examine that knife, because we need more of the more basic working knives. We have a lot of high-dollar Bowie knives that people are going to be afraid to use, but we need more on the lower end. All right, you guys take care, and thank you for watching. Have a good one.